Let's have a look at our top story today. The government will unveil a major overhaul of the disability benefit system tomorrow, meaning only the most severely disabled will be able to qualify.
Now, this follows criticism that the UK is overdiagnosing mental health conditions, for instance, with the number of people claiming disability benefits for anxiety and depression doubling in the past 10 years.
Well, here's what the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, told GBNews yesterday.
Should you be getting a PIP payment for ADHD, yes or no?
I think it very much depends on the nature of the condition and the severity.
ADHD, a PIP payment.
So I think it very much depends. We are looking at this whole issue of eligibility, and we are looking at this whole issue of overdiagnosis, because I am concerned that we have overdiagnosis of these conditions.
But with MPs already rebelling and the government backpedalling on proposals to freeze some of these payments, will they be able to push their reforms through? Well, we're going to get the thoughts now of a man who's got his ear close to the ground at Westminster, Special Advisor Oscar Reddrop. And Oscar, it's interesting to hear you've got this socialist government which acts, I think, increasingly unsocialist. It's amazing that, you know, they come along and they say, this is the sort of thing you may expect maybe more from a Conservative government than a Labour government. But where's the rebellion coming from? What size is this rebellion which is saying, oi, Starmer, before you go any further, think twice about this?
Well, it's really hard to put numbers on these things, and those that are, you know, leading the rebellion traditionally would be the centre to the left of the Labour Party, you'd imagine. They'll inflate the numbers in terms of when it goes to a vote. They'll say, you know, we've got hundreds of us, you know, but you can always kind of halve a rebellion by what you hear in the newspapers, I would say, generally speaking. But to your point, Eamonn, it is really interesting what's going on now. You know, with the abolishment of NHS England just last week as well, the Labour government are parking their tanks firmly on the right of politics at the moment, and they're squeezing, in many ways, they're kind of squeezing the life out of someone like Kemi, who's trying to get going, you know, really try and get, you know, the train on the track from a Conservative perspective. And I think a real push amongst the Labour Party hierarchy at the moment is how can we render the Conservative Party completely obsolete, just completely suffocate them? Because really, this is an issue that, and actually this is quite an elephant in the room sometimes, a Labour government can get away with stuff a Conservative government can't. You know, the nasty party. If the Conservative Party were going to push through a proposal like this, we'd be hearing a lot more heartache and noise, I think, out there. And the Labour Party are playing quite clever politics. And then on top of that, I think you've got a Keir Starmer now who's been in the job a little bit of time. You know, he had that relatively successful week, I would say, diplomatically, in terms of foreign policy. And they're kind of flexing their muscles a bit now. I think they're saying, like, come on, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can get away with. On the issue itself...
Why do they have to get away with it, Oscar? You know, I know they'll go back and they'll talk about this black hole and whatever, but basically they're sitting in the hot seat. They can do whatever they want, and if they were truly socialist, they would not be doing this, nor would they be freezing winter fuel payments or attacking the farmers with inheritance tax or whatever it happens to be. Really, I look at these things and I think just really non-socialist policies.
Yeah, but you know, as I said, you know, that is them with their ear to the ground. I think Morgan McSweeney, who's gone into number 10, you can see a real... They've got that almost that reform kind of threat hat on as well. Because actually, I think amongst a lot of people, we don't like the idea, actually, of people who, when we go out to work every day, we're all here, but like when, you know, people, hard work, they get up early in the morning, they're grafting all day long. They don't like the idea of someone who could be doing that, getting paid, maybe the same as them, you know, ultimately in terms of benefits they receive. So I think under the surface, this is quite a popular kind of policy area to look at, but we don't know the details yet, which is a bit of a joke, to be frank.
And there does seem to be some confusion in the ranks about that, doesn't it? It looks as though the plans may have been diluted over the weekend with these PIP payments, but then you've got that strong rhetoric from Wes Streeting saying that mental health has been overdiagnosed.
Well, I love that from Camilla, where she's just like, ADHD. Well, just going through the conditions, and you can see how uneasy he looks. And this is when, actually, the kind of the fun of Westminster and the briefing and the rebellion can actually be really, really bloody cruel, because there will be people who, you know, will have their conditions, who receive these payments, and they're watching these politicians go back and forth playing this game on TV, briefings into the newspapers, and they're thinking, this is my life at stake, and you're playing politics with it. And that is, I mean, whatever political party you back, or, you know, whichever colour that is, you know, that's wrong. That is wrong.
I'll tell you what I think's wrong. I think Starmer and his whole outlook. Who is he? What is he? 1 minute he's on Jeremy Corbyn's shoulder and he's as left as you can get, sort of thing. And the next minute, he's right of Boris Johnson, you know?
Dawn Neasdom, our very own, GBNews' very own, she pointed me in the direction of a tweet from 2016 where Keir Starmer was absolutely calling out the inhumane kind of disability cuts that the Tories were looking to push through at that time. And it just taps into that thing that everyone in the back of their mind, when they go about their daily life, suspects about politicians, which is that they shapeshift. And they have no moral compass.
No moral compass.
And Keir Starmer is politically very good at that. That's very, very good at that.
But unless people have a memory and they can see through him, I mean, I personally don't think he has a snowball's chance in hell of ever being re-elected again. Him personally, I'm not saying a different leader of the Labour Party wouldn't be re-elected, but him, surely people see through him.
Well, you know, he's isolating people. He's isolating groups in society one by one at the moment. And, you know, the farmers, relatively small, admittedly, but he's winter fuel, the winter fuel stuff, so old age pensioners. And the other thing here, which I think is forgotten about, if you really think people should be in work, and I think most people do, work is good for your mental health, it's just, you know, it's good for the economy, blah, 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 then the attack on businesses in terms of that national insurance rises, you know, that's where most people get their first job. So you're telling young people, stop all the snowflakey stuff, mate. You know, you don't have a mental health problem. You need to get out there and get to work. Yet you're stopping the people that would probably employ those people from being able to do so with, you know, horrific tax, basically a tax on jobs ultimately. So it's not joined up, and that's when the shape-shifting kind of gets caught out a little bit. But we'll see what happens. But at the moment, it's a mess. And there are people's...
Oscar, you've set the thought process up for today and what people should think, which brings us to our poll of the day, asking you what you think.
Do you back Wes Streeting's crackdown on sickness pay in a bid to get people back to work? Let us know what you think. You can scan the QR code on your screen now, or you can head to gbnews.com/poll. As always, the final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Oscar, you see, this idea will take away your benefits and that'll get you back to work. You seem to forget, if you've got a disability, for instance, you can't get to the bus, you can't get off the bus, you can't get through the office. There's lots of things you can't do because physically you can't do it. It's not as simple as saying, if we take 30 quid off people, that's going to solve the problem.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is where, you know, where Camilla's just going through the specific conditions on the Sunday show yesterday with Wes, where it gets really quite gruesome in many ways, because you're asking people... And this is the joke. The government don't know. You know, they're saying, like, so if you can wash yourself, you know, using your top half of your body, but you can't, you know, and you get into this kind of level of detail that is really, really fundamentally uncomfortable and difficult to talk about. And the Tories bottled it, ultimately, because this is, again, stuff that the Tories, we have a welfare bill in this country that the Tories didn't quite have the stomach to really confront. And I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see if the Labour Party can do it, because a lot of the back and forth and the U-turning we've seen isn't really, I don't think, a result of public pressure yet, because most people are just getting on about with their lives. It's about their backbench MPs.
I'll tell you this, I could be elected tomorrow. Absolutely, I could be elected as an MP. This idea that we don't have any money, it's a nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense. We're a very rich country, but we spend all the money and we spend it on completely the wrong things. And we're not talking about lives, people dying because we're not spending the money. We're talking about social gatherings and singing and all sorts of nonsense, rubbish, and it could be put a bed to. If I was an MP or I was in government, that's more importantly, you could make these cuts everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and it wouldn't affect anybody.